If you've walked away from your faith community but find yourself missing God, or you've discovered that your spiritual practices feel empty to you, if you've deconstructed your beliefs but now feel spiritually ungrounded, you are exactly who this space is for. So many people who carry religious trauma or spiritual abuse were taught some version of if you do enough, if you obey enough, if you perform well enough, then maybe you will experience God. And when your deconstruction falls apart, when the thing you were trying to follow and had promised blessings from doesn't work, it can feel like your whole connection with the divine is falling apart too. I know for me, there was a season during the last year in church and right after I left Mormonism when prayer became almost impossible for me. My nervous system was mostly shut down, and the only thing I could feel in my body was restlessness. And that translates to an inability to sit still, especially in prayer. What I'd been taught about God felt unfriendly and unsafe, and my body reacted to it. And yet, my own private experiences of God had been marked by peace and real direct connection. But I didn't know how to bridge the dissonance. How do I release the fear in my body while trusting the relationship that I actually knew? So I stopped formal prayer for a while and found that sacred intimacy begins not with returning to words or rituals, but with what honoring your nervous system looks like. So I had to listen to my nervous system, what it was communicating to me, and allow the relationship to reform without fear. I'm creating this sacred intimacy series because I want to help you create something different than what you may have experienced before. A direct, gentle, everyday relationship with the divine that doesn't depend on a church, a leader, or a checklist to be real. When I say sacred intimacy, I'm talking about a lived relationship with the divine that feels loving, safe, and personally responsive, present in the very ordinary moments of your life. To help you understand it a little more, let me tell you some of the realities of what sacred intimacy with the divine feels like so you know what's coming in this series. First is unmediated connection with the divine, a sense that you and the divine are in direct relationship without a gatekeeper, without needing someone else to validate that your relationship is real. Everyday presence, being able to sense the divine while you're washing dishes, while you're driving, while you're just breathing, while you're sitting on the couch, not just in formal rituals or in special buildings. And there's a sense of inner authority where you trust your own spiritual experiences, even when other people don't understand them. So my experience with God, with the divine, especially in relationship to the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda, are that God and that relationship can be so intimate and so nuanced as to be able to dig into our emotional and mental obstacles and roadblocks and heal them. And if you've ever been to therapy, you know that that's also a very nuanced relationship. One that if somebody couldn't be a fly on the wall in your therapy sessions, they wouldn't really understand the relationship that you have with your therapist. And sacred intimacy is like that. It's hard to share those experiences publicly and have other people understand them because it's so deeply personal and so intimate. That's why I speak of divine sacred intimacy. Another aspect of sacred intimacy is safe vulnerability, where you get to bring your real thoughts, your doubts, your anger, all of the feelings, your longing into that relationship. Nothing about your feelings and who you are disqualifies you from that connection. In fact, when you open those things up to the divine, it brings a real sense of attachment and connection that you can feel, and that's deeply healing. But if you've come from high control religion, this might feel like a radical shift from how do I keep from disappointing God to what does it mean to be in a kind, honest, ongoing relationship with the divine? Think of it like this. Sacred intimacy is not just one thing that you do. It's a whole way of living in relationship with the divine. In this work, there are 12 different intimacies, 12 areas where your relationship with the divine shows up in embodied, practical ways, ways that we're naturally able to accomplish as human beings. Think of it, if God created us, then why wouldn't God use the pathways that we can accomplish as human beings to establish intimacy with us? It just makes sense. These areas of intimacy include things like spiritual intimacy, where you're exploring and deepening your direct relationship with the divine. Communication intimacy, where you're looking at how you listen and how you speak with the divine. Work intimacy, which is how your calling, your creativity, and contribution become a sacred collaboration with the divine. And then there are other areas like conflict intimacy, right? How do you deal with your spiritual relationship with God when things are in conflict? Does it draw you closer or do you pull away? Social intimacy, recreational intimacy, and more. Places where spirituality and real life actually meet. Over this series, we'll walk very slowly through these different areas, always in a trauma-informed, non-dogmatic way. That means we honor your nervous system. We don't impose religious rules, and we build from your natural spiritual gifts, not from your wounds. Today, we're beginning with spiritual intimacy itself, your personal, direct relationship with the divine. For so many people, that relationship got tangled up, and you can listen to these and see if that's true for you or where you fall. But it got tangled up with things like performance spirituality, where you believe you just have to do more practices or do more things right so you can finally feel connected. That also is connected to work-based spirituality, where your spirituality shows up by exhausting yourself and doing all of the things when none of those things are necessary for the connection with God to exist. The next one is shame-based images of God as a harsh, punitive deity, one that you're always disappointing. And then the third one I'll speak of here is deconstruction fatigue, because you've taken apart what harmed you, but you haven't found something nourishing that you can live inside of spiritually. Spiritual intimacy invites a different experience. The divine is experienced as fundamentally benevolent, capable of holding all of you, including the messy, angry, doubting parts. Honest vulnerability is welcomed. You do not have to edit your inner life before you show up in prayer or meditation. One of the biggest shifts in sacred intimacy is moving from, I must manage this relationship correctly, to, I'm allowed to be fully here, exactly as I am, and trust that love will meet me there. So as you think about this, I want to offer you one very small, very gentle practice that counts as real spiritual connection in this model. Wherever you are, if it feels okay, you might place a hand on your heart, on your chest, and take one slow, intentional breath. As you exhale, let yourself speak one unedited sentence to the divine. Not the sentence you think you're supposed to say, the sentence that's actually true right now. So many people who I've worked with don't want to do this because they believe that God won't hold the parts of themselves that they find unacceptable, including feelings that they've named as inappropriate to bring to God. But let me just challenge you with this question. If you're praying to a God who doesn't love and accept all of you, then what are you doing? You have to hide under the bed so that God doesn't know you're mad at him? God knows. So for a sentence that's actually true right now, feel into your unspoken desires, your fears, your hurts. It might sound something like, I feel far away from you and I don't know how to come back. Or, I'm angry that I was hurt in your name. Or, I'm tired of performing for you. Or simply, this is my prayer when I came out of the church. Are you even there? And then just notice what happens in your body. You're not looking for fireworks. You're just noticing. Does your chest soften a little? Is there a tear? Do you feel tension? Is there a numbness? Whatever is there is part of the conversation. That's where it starts. That's the raw honesty that can bring you into connection with the divine. In sacred intimacy, these micro moments, a single honest breath, a single unedited sentence, they're not less than formal prayer, contrary to what you've been taught. They are real, valid contact points in your relationship with the divine. So if this touched something in you, you might journal with this question later today. Where in my spiritual life have I been performing for God? And what would it feel like to set that performance down, even for a moment, and get really honest with God? Notice what comes up in your body as you sit with that. If you feel grief, anger, or tenderness, that could mean something real is moving. This is not you failing spiritually. This is your heart telling you the truth. It might feel scary, but I would encourage you to experiment with being honest about your true feelings, your true self, and feel in to what happens next. If you remember one thing from today, let it be this. Your honest, unedited self is not a barrier to God. It is the doorway into sacred intimacy. If you're sensing that this is your language, that you need a place to untangle religious trauma, rebuild trust with the divine, and do it in a way that honors your story and your nervous system. I'd love to walk with you more personally. I do offer spiritual counseling sessions, and the first step is a free 15-minute consultation call. It's not a sales call. It's a brief space to honor your story, to share a little bit about yourself, to ask questions, and to see if this way of working feels like a good fit for you. If you're ready to explore how the divine might already be reaching toward you in ways that feel kinder than what you were taught, you can schedule that free consultation using the link in the description below. This is the first video in a 52-week sacred intimacy journey. Each week, we'll take one dimension of intimacy with the divine and explore how it shows up in real life and how to heal it in ways that honor your story. Next time, we'll turn toward communication intimacy, how to recognize the difference between ego chatter and genuine guidance, and how to talk with the divine without performing. If you'd like to go deeper in conversation form, the Inner Light Companion podcast on Tuesdays offers longer story-based explorations of these themes as well. Your relationship with the divine is allowed to be kinder, safer, and more intimate than what you were taught. You're not too broken to belong. Thank you for being here.